There was this faint sour smell coming from the microwave across the hall, somebody's leftover fish from who knows when. But I barely noticed it anymore. I had bigger problems, like trying to stay awake under buzzing fluorescent lights that made the air feel thick. My name's Rachel. I'm 42 years old, and I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I worked federal compliance for Alaris Point, a subcontractor that serviced half the DOE's mid-tier oversight work. My job: risk documentation, oversight tags, monitoring clearance renewals, the kind of invisible back-end work that only matters when it breaks. And when it breaks, it's a fire. That day started like any other. No windows, 2 half-dead spider plants on my file cabinet, both leaning to the left like they'd given up. I had my usual lunch: tuna salad in a reusable container, some wheat crackers, and a single slice of red apple. It was just after noon when I flagged a form, something minor, one of those outdated clearance signatures that could flag a risk under Section 7D. Nothing explosive, just enough to make a note. I logged it. Quiet, precise. That was my rhythm. And then I heard the click-click of heels coming too fast. Lexi from HR. Blonde hair, tight bun, that clipboard clutched like it was welded to her hand. She didn't knock, she didn't smile. "You know eating at your desk is a health code violation," she said, eyes scanning my container like I dumped motor oil on the keyboard. I blinked. "What?" She didn't answer, just tilted her head, the way people do when they've already decided they're right. "You'll need to report to HR after lunch," she added, turning before I could speak. 1:15. Don't be late." That was it. No explanation, no room for a question. Just her voice all tight and clipped. The same tone they used when layoffs were coming, or someone got caught browsing job boards on the company time. I sat there for a second, spoon in hand, trying to figure out if I'd just gotten written up for a lunchbox. My desk was spotless. Always had been. 8 years without a single incident. Not even a paper cut on record. Still, I didn't say a word. I sealed the container, wiped the table, and shut down my terminal like it was just another Tuesday. At 1:15 sharp, I stood up and walked to HR, not thinking it was anything serious, not knowing I was walking straight into the trap. The HR door clicked shut behind me, and Lexi was already seated. Her face didn't move an inch when I walked in. Just a cold stare, hands folded over a thick manila folder with my name typed across the tab in that ugly black Times New Roman. No chairs were offered. I stood. "We're terminating your employment effective immediately," she said, flipping the folder open like this was routine dental work. "Due to repeated workspace hygiene violations." I looked down. The form already had my name printed, boxes checked, signature line flagged with a red post-it. "Repeated?" I asked. "You've been spoken to about eating at your desk multiple times." That was a lie, bold, clean, and rehearsed. "No, I haven't." She blinked like I'd coughed in her face. "Rachel, this is not a negotiation." I didn't say another word, not because she was right, she wasn't, but because it was pointless. This was already done. I picked up the pen sitting next to the form. My hand didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just signed it. Lexi stood and slid a thin white envelope across the desk. "Your final paycheck and COBRA details. Security will escort you out." I laughed once, short and dry. "Security? Really?" She didn't answer. The hall outside HR suddenly felt longer than it ever had. My flat scuffed the fake tile as I walked back toward my desk. The same path I'd taken every day for 8 years. Except now people stared. Word had gotten out already. Eyes peeked over cubicle walls. A few turned away like they hadn't seen anything. When I passed the break room, I froze. Someone had taped my ID photo to the bulletin board, the one from my first day, where I still had bangs and a nervous smile. Across it, someone had scribbled in black Sharpie, "Terminated, unauthorized eating, do not rehire." There was a mustard stain on the corner, like someone had eaten their lunch while laughing at it. I didn't cry then either, but my ears were burning. It wasn't the job. I could survive without it. It was the way they did it. 8 years of spotless compliance, and this is what I get, turned into some office punchline over a plastic fork and a single apple slice. I walked back to my desk, didn't even sit down. My mug was still half full of cold coffee. My spider plants drooped like they were ashamed. I didn't take anything, not the mug, not the framed photo of my niece, not the 2 binders I personally built from scratch. But before I shut my computer down, I did one thing. I opened Outlook, attached a flagged risk memo I'd filed last week, one that hadn't been reviewed yet, forwarded it from my work email to my personal, no notes, no message, just the file. Then I logged off, grabbed my purse, and walked to the elevator like I was heading to lunch. As the doors closed, I saw Lexi at the end of the hallway talking to someone from finance. She didn't look at me. I didn't wave. That was the moment I knew something was off. You don't pre-fill a termination form unless you're setting someone up, and nobody scribbles "do not rehire" unless they're trying to make sure you stay erased. She wanted me gone, but not quietly. Let her laugh. Let them all laugh. They thought I was just another admin ghost who filed forms and ate tuna in silence. They didn't know I'd been watching everything for years, and backing up every single thread. I got home, dropped my keys, and didn't even bother taking off my shoes. Went straight to the second bedroom, my makeshift office, pulled the blinds shut, and powered up my personal laptop. That machine wasn't flashy. No stickers, no lights, no fancy keyboard. Just clean, quiet, and organized like everything else I kept outside of Alaris Point. I had never trusted that place. Not fully. Maybe it was the way Lexi smiled like she had secrets, or how Craig once accidentally locked me out of our SharePoint folders for 3 days. Either way, I'd spent the last 5 years building a private archive. Local copies, screenshots, daily risk logs I exported at night and saved with the date and initials. Was it company data? Sure. But it was my oversight work, my logs, my name on every compliance sheet. And that memo I'd forwarded before leaving, it was more than a risk flag. It was a breadcrumb to a bigger fire. I opened my compliance archive and typed in a search. DOG 81, a 6-clause 17B. The file popped up instantly. Grant documents from the Department of Energy, round 6. Funding value, $160 million spread across 6 projects. I clicked through to the monitor protocol section, and there it was. Clause 17. B. In the event that a named federal compliance officer or cleared monitor is removed from active oversight due to internal disciplinary action, the awarded contract is subject to immediate non-compliance pending federal review. I was the named officer, my full name, first, middle, last, typed right there in black and white. Lexi had used the word misconduct on the termination form, workspace hygiene violation. That phrasing wasn't just HR fluff. It was a nail in their own coffin. They didn't just fire me. They stripped a federally cleared monitor mid-cycle with cause, which, according to Clause 17B, meant those 6 active contracts were now hanging by a thread. And the best part? I knew they hadn't replaced me properly. I logged into the public clearance roster, the government's own verification tool, searched Alaris Point, looked up my replacement, Craig Nystrom, uncleared, unlisted, 0 federal monitor credentials. The man couldn't legally review a single oversight document, let alone monitor federal funds, and they handed him my entire portfolio. Incompetent. I cross-referenced the staff clearance log I downloaded last quarter. Craig was nowhere on it. No active PRAs, no background check filed, not even a pending status. Lexi had tossed me like spoiled yogurt and replaced me with a guy who didn't even have level 1 access. 6 grants, $160 million, all on fire. And no one at Alaris Point had a clue yet. I leaned Hi, just checking. Has there been an update to the oversight roster for Cycle 81 as 6? I'm no longer with Alaris Point as of yesterday. I hit send and sat back. Let the email work. 20 minutes later, the reply landed. 1 line. You're not on the clearance sheet anymore. That was all I needed. I cracked my knuckles, took a slow sip, and typed back, that's now a breach per Clause 17B. No greeting, no sign-off. I hit send and watched the cursor blink for a few seconds. Then I opened a new tab and filed for my LLC, Audit Nest Services, LLC, incorporated in Maryland. Purpose, independent federal compliance review and grant monitoring. It cost me less than $200 to make official what I'd already been doing behind the curtain for years. I uploaded my standard service terms, built a placeholder site using a free template. Nothing flashy, just functional, clean language, contract ready. I didn't have to rant or file a complaint. I'd written the system. I knew how it cracked. I closed the email and opened my personal task board, labeled a new column, Incoming Chaos. There were no alarms yet, no scrambling, but the message had landed, and the grantor now had a record that Alaris Point had yanked a federally cleared monitor without protocol. I took a breath. Finally. I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't trying to burn anyone down. But if they lit the match, I wasn't going to stop the fire from spreading either. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when the sync report dropped. DOE runs oversight audits like clockwork, scheduled pulls that line up contract rosters with current clearance records. Every 3 weeks, no exceptions. That morning, it hit. I watched it roll in through the same open source tracker I'd used at Alaris Point, a basic read-only sync showing grant IDs, assigned monitors, and their active clearance status. For Cycle 81 A6, under monitor, Rachel Lynn Howard, removed. Replacement, none filed. That was the first crack. By 9:12 in the morning, I started seeing pings on old back channels, compliance Slack logs, internal SharePoint trackers. Nothing private, just stuff they'd never locked down after I left. I hadn't even touched anything off limits. I didn't have to. Thread after thread, panic. Why is Rachel still listed in the DOE ledger? Craig's name isn't on the clearance pull. Was that ever filed? Has Lexi confirmed this with legal? Clause 17 violation incoming. There it was, in writing. I didn't reply, didn't nudge, just kept sipping coffee while my laptop buzzed with real-time fear. I clicked into Craig's profile. Someone had shared a screenshot. His role title had been updated to Compliance Oversight Lead, but his security clearance line was blank. Completely blank. Some poor intern flagged it with, "Is he even allowed to hold this position without a 3C cert?" Answer, no. By mid-morning, someone on the legal team opened a new thread titled Urgent Federal Monitor Transition. I recognized the names, Michael from Risk, Neha from Grants. Even Alan, the one director who used to brag, he didn't need to know compliance to run compliance. Their tone had shifted. No jokes, no passive-aggressive HR lingo. Now it was, who signed off on the termination? What language was used in the form? Was misconduct explicitly stated? Yes, it was. I had the form. They did too. Then came the first direct hit. A screenshot of an email from the DOE contract manager, sent at 10:31 in the morning. Please advise who is now serving as cleared monitor for 81A6. No updates have been submitted to the oversight roster. This discrepancy is now flagged as non-compliant per clause 17B. Boom. I leaned back, stretched, and let the silence in my apartment breathe for a second. I didn't need to gloat. The system was doing exactly what it was built to do. Flag risk, surface gaps, hold people accountable. They hadn't just removed a name from a form. They'd kicked out a federally cleared officer mid-cycle with misconduct language and replaced her with an unqualified, uncleared hire. All 6 contracts were now exposed. At 10:47 in the morning, my phone rang. Blocked number. I didn't answer. Voicemail popped up. I didn't check it. A second call. This time it flashed Alaris Point, main line. Still didn't pick up. Third one came in from Lexi's extension. I turned my phone over and let it ring out on the hardwood floor. They knew. They just didn't know how deep the hole was yet. And I wasn't about to help them fill it. By lunchtime, Lexi tried to spin it. Alaris Point called an emergency all-hands meeting. Zoom invite hit inboxes with the subject line, Urgent Compliance Clarification, Attendance Required. She opened with that HR voice she always used, like she was reading a children's book in a courtroom. I know there's been a lot of confusion this morning, she said. We want to be fully transparent. Then she launched straight into damage control, said I'd been non-compliant with internal hygiene expectations, claimed there were multiple documented conversations about my desk habits, said I'd shown a pattern of disregard for basic workspace policies. But Lexi wasn't talking to a room full of interns. Within minutes, someone posted a photo of the break room board in the company's Slack, the one with my ID picture taped up and "Do not rehire" scrawled across it like graffiti. That image spread like wildfire. Right next to it, screenshots of the clause, 17B Slack, threads I'd written almost 2 years ago, outlining risks, definitions, how the clause worked, how firing a name monitor mid-cycle could trigger non-compliance. I'd posted it in plain sight, pinned the damn thing to the compliance channel. They'd all ignored it. Now it was front and center. Slack blew up. We fired the one person keeping us compliant over a sandwich. Clause 17B was literally in the logs. Is Craig even cleared to be in those meetings? There were memes. Someone photoshopped my face onto a saint statue holding a clipboard. Another put Craig's photo over a burning dumpster. But underneath the jokes, people were pissed. 8 years I worked there. Never raised my voice, never made waves. But I left a paper trail so clean, it practically glowed in the dark. And now, legal couldn't bury it, because the breach was real, and every audit log led right back to my initials. RLH, over and over, on every key oversight form, every clause citation, every flagged risk. There was no one to blame but themselves. While the company lost its mind trying to plug the leaks, I signed a consulting deal, 6-month contract. Another DOE subcontractor out of Virginia. One I used to audit back when I wore the Alaris badge. They knew my work, knew my logs. Didn't ask stupid questions about desk lunches. We finalized the deal over 2 short calls. They wired the retainer by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I signed with a smile. Same grant cycle, same compliance structure. But this time, I had full control over the framework. No Lexi, no Craig, no HR fluff. I sat down that evening, pulled up my draft of the new system, and started cleaning house. Fewer bottlenecks, tighter risk tags, simpler audit trails. Everything they said I couldn't do at Alaris, I was already doing better, faster, cleaner, and I didn't have to say a word. The next morning, the federal agent showed up. Not a warning call, not a heads-up email. Just walked into Alaris Point's glass box of a lobby with a black binder under one arm and a badge clipped to her coat. Word traveled fast. Everyone scrambled. Ties came out of drawers, jackets got buttoned. Craig ditched his hoodie for a wrinkled button-down and stood near the copier like he belonged there. Lexi called an emergency leadership huddle in conference room B, the one with the fake marble table and the digital thermostat no one knew how to work. Legal was already waiting inside, trying not to look like they were sweating. The agent sat down calmly, didn't ask for water, didn't crack a smile, just flipped the binder open to the page she'd already dog-eared. Lexi launched into her speech like she was hosting a webinar. "We deeply value compliance," she said, with both hands folded like a news anchor. This was an internal matter involving repeated workspace hygiene violations. We addressed it swiftly to maintain a professional environment and uphold our internal policy on public food infractions. Not one person made eye contact with her. The agent didn't blink. She turned the binder around and read out loud. Clause 17. B. If a named federally cleared monitor is removed mid-cycle due to any disciplinary action or perceived misconduct, the contract is considered non-compliant. Immediate review and potential funding freeze will follow. No exceptions. Silence. Craig coughed once into his sleeve. The director of compliance shifted in his chair like the cushion had turned to nails. Lexi cleared her throat. We were under the impression this didn't meet that level of classification. The agent snapped the binder shut. The language on the termination form says misconduct. That's not ambiguous. One of the legal reps leaned forward. Is there any process we can initiate to walk this back? The agent didn't even look up from her folder. That depends. Can you unterminate a federally cleared oversight officer for eating a sandwich? And just like that, the air left the room. Nobody had anything to say. That's when it sank in. The freeze had already been triggered. All 6 active contracts were flagged. DOE wasn't processing invoices. Payment pipelines were locked. Review cycles were paused. They didn't just screw up. They did it with a signature and a Sharpie on a break room wall. Lexi finally spoke again, voice softer now. There has to be a fix. One of the legal guys mumbled without raising his head. We fired her for eating lunch. That's what we wrote. That was the moment it all cracked. The blazers, the buzzwords, the fake confidence. It all deflated in the space between 2 sentences. They had no out, no appeal, no rewrite. They'd fired a federally cleared monitor over a sandwich, put it in writing, and tried to joke about it on a bulletin board. I wasn't in the room, didn't have to be. But I heard about every detail by 4 now p.m. By the end of that same week, it wasn't just one grant under review. The DOE grantor flagged 4 more contracts tied to Alaris Point. Every single one had my initials somewhere in the original oversight structure, and none had a cleared replacement. Audit inconsistencies piled up. Vendor logs didn't match the dates. Oversight reviews were missing digital signatures. One cycle hadn't been updated in 2 months. Craig apparently didn't know where the risk form folder even was. It wasn't just a mess, it was a pattern. By Tuesday morning, the DOE officially froze all active grant payments pending full audit. Over $180 million in federal funding locked. That's when the CEO stepped down. No warning, just a quiet email to staff. Effective immediately, I'll be stepping away for personal reasons. Right. Lexi didn't get an announcement, but I noticed her title vanish from LinkedIn. A former coworker texted me. She's been reassigned, internal only, no one knows to where. Classic HR move, rebrand the problem, bury the headline. Meanwhile, I stayed out of sight. Never stepped foot back in the building, didn't answer calls, didn't respond to that half-assed email someone in legal sent asking if I'd be open to discussing a compliance review pathway. They didn't need a discussion, they needed a lifeline, and I already owned it. That Friday, Alaris Point made it official. They hired Audit Nest Services, my firm, as the external compliance vendor to reestablish audit structure across all frozen grants. The same people who mocked my desk lunch now needed my signature to unlock federal funds. I wrote the contract myself. Simple language, 6-month retainer, strict review schedule, full data access. At the bottom, service line item, federal compliance resuscitation, $52,600. They signed it without a word. I didn't smile when it cleared, didn't toast anything, just added the payment confirmation to my tracker and got to work. Started rebuilding the same system they'd ignored. Wrote my own protocols, rewrote the entire 7D tagging flow. This time, no Lexi leaning over my shoulder. No directors asking me to dumb it down for execs. No HR memos about sandwich etiquette. Just clean work, done right. The same hands they slapped away were now the only ones holding the structure together. That's what irony looks like when it costs you over $50,000 a month. The hum of the space heater kicked in under my desk. Right as the clock hit 12:01, I sat in my new office. 2 rooms, 1 bathroom, no drama. Beige walls, cheap tile, real freedom. Across from me, my assistant Brooke sat on the floor sorting file boxes by contract year. She'd only been with me a month, but she already worked cleaner than most of the managers I'd ever dealt with at Alaris. I opened my lunch bag, pulled out a turkey and cheddar sandwich, wrapped tight in wax paper, no apology. Took a bite, chewed slow. I glanced at the corner of my desk, the snapped plastic ID badge from Alaris Point. The one they printed for me 8 years ago, before the cubicle, before Lexi, before Craig. The photo was cracked straight through the eyes. I picked it up, turned it once in my hand, then fed it into the shredder by my desk. The machine whirred, loud and final, plastic teeth, grinding down the last thing they thought they owned. Gone. Brooke stood up and wiped her hands. Line 2's blinking. I didn't look up. Who is it? She tilted the receiver. Alaris Point. Said they want to talk appeal. I swallowed the bite, no rush. Tell them I'm eating. She grinned, turned, and walked out without another word. No anger, no panic, no speeches. They'd erased me like I was disposable. Now I bill them every 30 days to fix the crater they made. Closure looks like a sandwich at your own damn desk.